You're listening to my review of Steven Universe, episode 117, titled The Zoo. There's going to be lots and lots of spoilers in this, so if you have not watched it, do not listen. You have been warned. Hello and welcome back to the Steven Universe Bomb Review. This is my fourth review, the fourth episode of the last Steven Bomb. That's episode 117, titled The Zoo. It is a great episode. If you haven't seen it, I have to say this, and I know I say this before the little theme there, but first off, go watch it if you haven't seen it. It's going to make everything much more enjoyable. Second, tons of spoilers, so just go watch it. So, without further ado, let's just get on with it. I've warned you every review already for the last 4 days. I'm getting sick of it. If I still have to warn people, that's just pathetic. So this, obviously, just like the last couple episodes of this bomb, it is picking up right where the last one left off. The last episode was Steven. At the very end of that last episode, Steven was brought into the sanctuary, the zoo, where the humans are kept on this basically big spaceship of a zoo, and he's getting brought in there. The one thing I did note right away was that the very ending, when Steven comes out of the water and sees his dad and says, "Dad," and this very beginning where he comes out of the water, it's a little different. He actually gets shot out of the water. I'm wondering how the animators missed that, or if they even cared. It's a little bit different, but it's just slightly different. Watching these basically back to back, I noticed these things, but it doesn't really matter. But so Steven comes out of the water, sees his dad. His dad runs up, is like, "Oh my God, what the hell are you doing here?" Not nearly as excited and shocked that Steven's there as he probably should be. He's just like, "Holy Dick, you're here, what the hell?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll explain later." He goes, "Oh, okay, well, hey, come meet these people. They braided my hair." You're not more shocked that your son is in this spaceship jail of a zoo? But not a big deal. He doesn't seem super eager to go home. I know Steven's like, "All right, let's go. We got separated from the gems. Let's get out of here." And Greg's like, "Well, hold on there." And Steven kind of snaps at the indigenous people of the sanctuary. And Greg's like, "Whoa, Stewball" is what he calls him, which I think is a great name. He's like, "Hold up, these people have been very nice to me, and it's, they're very cool. They don't know life on Earth. They have been bred here. Their ancestors were from Earth, and they were captured thousands and thousands of years ago. So living here is all they've known." So he's like, "Steven, be nice." It's just weird that Greg doesn't seem eager to go home. But supposedly he's been here for at least a couple days in this timeline, which also doesn't make sense to me, but I'll get to that in a little bit. He's been here for a couple days, and makes me wonder, I thought for sure, by the end of the episode, he was gonna, mention to Steven's, maybe I don't want to go home. Everything is provided here. There's no bills. There was a couple little things that Greg said in there that made it seem like maybe he doesn't want to go home. Which, is fair. He lives on Earth. He lives in a van. He works at a car wash. He doesn't got much going for him. But now that his son is here, they could just live, the rest of their lives just happily, whatever. Towards the end of the episode, they realize the downsides of that, and we'll get to that. But, he at first it seemed like Greg maybe didn't want to leave. Maybe he kind of liked the simplicity of, having your meals provided for you. There's no bills. There's sleep when they tell you to sleep. There's nothing to think about. There's just good times and good baths. You know what I'm saying? And I did mention at the end of the last review of 2000, what the hell? Of 116, the review I did yesterday, I did mention that, holy crap, Greg is with two girls. What a stud. Well, I'm an asshole and I assumed a gender. That was one of those was not a girl. That was who was that? Y6 was this character's name, and kind of reminds me of Aladdin. Has long hair, kind of looked like a girl at first. it's an easy mistake, and whatever. But let's get down with this is Steven Universe. Genders don't really ever matter. Sexuality definitely doesn't matter, and I think that's great, and I think that's an awesome thing about Steven Universe. Obviously, it was an innocent mistake that I said it was a girl, not hurting that many feelings, I don't think, out there, but I did want to mention that, nope, that's definitely a dude, and it doesn't matter. It seems like this utopia of people and at the sanctuary, have kind of transcended gender somewhat. They all kind of wear the same thing. They kind of all act the same, and I kind of like. I like that a lot. I think that was put in there for a reason. I mean, Steven Universe has been very progressive in that field thus far, and I think that's a really cool thing that they did there. Also, very mixed race looking people. There's a couple very white characters in this utopia, but for the most part, it seemed very, very much a melting pot of different types of people, which I think is also very cool. Steven Universe, you guys are killing it out there in these fields. I'm not going to bring up what I was going to bring up because it was bashing somebody who decided that they didn't like the show because of the lesbian, it wasn't even like, oh yeah, they're straightforward lesbians, but they're like, it kind of hints at lesbian stuff, and I don't like that in a kid's show. And I'm like, fuck you. Are you kidding me? But I'm not going to talk about that because I'm a happy guy and I love Steven Universe. And if you don't because of what you think is a lesbian relationship between two fucking gems, well, then don't fucking watch it. You're probably a piece of shit. But, so, Steven quickly gets introduced to a couple of these characters from this utopia, and the way these people talk is just great. They call Steven Stevon, they call Greg Gareg, and just the way they say things is my favorite. There's a couple of lines in here that I'll probably get to. I think I wrote a few of them down that are just great. I mean, they obviously would have their own little dialect after being there for 5,000 years and having such a small community of people. I think it's kind of neat. But the people, so Greg has supposedly been there for a couple days, like I'd mentioned, and one of the characters is like, wait, is this the Steve Vaughn you were telling us about? Oh, the one with the bits. Ah, the bits. And then everybody starts chanting, the bits, which is a throwback to quite an earlier episode, or maybe even a couple episodes, about the French fry bits that Steven likes to get for free. And I really liked that throwback. The bits return is what I'm calling this episode. Sorry, I'm a little sick. But the fact that they want him to say the bits, that part was pretty cool. It was a good little flashback to a kind of a quirkier moment of a past season. So we find out, that these people are living there, and when Greg doesn't seem so eager to leave, he says, okay, we're going to find this door that you're talking about, because he's talking about that door that they found on the other side of. They need to find it from the inside to see if they can open it. Greg's like, all right, we'll find this door, but let's do it tonight after the routine. It'll be a lot easier to do after the routine. And you're like, what the hell's the routine? Suddenly the earrings start glowing. That's on everybody. And a voice comes out and saying, time for the daily routine. It's dinner time, time to eat or whatever. And Steven's like, what the hell is this? And the Aladdin-looking motherfucker says, Stevon does not know what the little voice is, just like Gareg when he first came here. Ha, 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 ha. And I thought that was pretty good. So there's this little voice in I don't know if it's an automated voice. It seems like it doesn't seem like somebody like a gem on a microphone or anything, but that gets them through their day-to-day stuff. So these people don't need to think that much. They get told when to eat. Fruit just happens to grow on trees. I don't know, some kind of technology, but the fruit grows on the trees, and then they pick it and they say, time to eat, and fruit, boom, and they eat it. And Today the fruit is purple, he says. One of them says, very excited. So the fruit's different colors, multiple different days. So I think that was pretty exciting for them. But yeah, they just go through these routines of day-to-day living. What was there? There was like time to play, and they roll down a hill. Now reach your hands out to the space. Try to grab space. Wasn't that fun? And then the one guy, the Aladdin dude, I'm gonna call him Aladdin, but I think it was Y6, but I'm gonna call him Aladdin. But he's like, I have not had that much fun since yesterday. So they're going through this stuff, and they're very happy. And just the inflection in all the voices of these people is just so great. I wrote that in my notes. That's probably my favorite thing from this episode, is just the way they talk. I thought was just phenomenal. But the voice then says, it's time to get clean. It's time for the bath. And it, like, the way the camera, like, the animation, like, pans to the bath scene is so weirdly sexual. It's like a fantasy scene, and, like, opens up, and there's, like, waterfalls, and there's people with long hair on, like, every little, like, edge of every waterfall. You go back and look at it if you don't remember what it looks like. It looks like it should be inappropriate. And obviously, if they're cleaning themselves, if this was like a real scenario, they'd probably be naked. And they're all like underneath water running down their bodies and stuff. And it just looks like, I feel like they wanted to animate it a little more inappropriately, but then they're just like, okay, no, this is a kid show. Let's not. But little weird. I digress. Maybe it's just me and I'm a pervert. Whatever. And they're like, Greg, look at me splash. And they would jump off like the waterfall into the water to try to make a splash. And they would like pencil dive, and it wouldn't make like any splash. And Greg's like, great. And Steven's like, what the fuck are they doing? They're crazy. And Greg's like, let me show them what's up. So he's like, you guys ever heard of a cannonball? And Y6 goes, haha, I have never heard it. Tell me what it is. And so he shows them a cannonball, and they're all like, whoa, this is the greatest thing. And so they all start doing cannonballs, and it's a great time. And the little voice says, don't you want to get in the water and get clean, to Steven or something like that? And Steven's like, fine, and jumps in the water. And obviously it's just not having a good time. Greg's having a great time. And he's like, Steven, are you okay? You holding up? Is everything going to be fine? And he goes, I just don't get it. None of these people have real freedom. And I'm paraphrasing here. I don't know exactly what he says. But they're all so happy, but they don't make their own choices. They just live day to day listening to this little voice. They don't make a single choice on their own. They're so happy. And Greg responds with, this is all they've ever known. Like, they don't have responsibilities or stress. They're just happy. And that right there is some really, really deep, thought-provoking shit. Like, for a fucking kid show, like, there's so much psychology going on in here. And, like, is this morally okay? If these people are happy, is it okay that they are here? Like, if, let's say the scenario is the gems have an opportunity to save all of these humans. The crystal gems have an opportunity to save all of these humans. Do they do it? Do they take them away from this utopia that they've known for their entire lives, for the last 5,000 years of their ancestors? Do they take them away and bring them back to Earth? Or do they let them just live out their lives here because they're happy? Until, the next scene when Greg breaks all their hearts. But we'll get to that. That's some really deep stuff going here. I mean, that's a conversation that you could have for a long time. I could have like 4 episodes just about that. Like, I wish I had somebody here to like discuss it with me, but damn, like, that's some deep stuff. It made me think quite a bit. Like, is this okay what they're doing? I mean, even Greg has only been there for a couple of days. He seems really happy, and he's, he wasn't born into this. He doesn't know exactly. He doesn't feel the same way these other people do, but he already seems happy enough. Steven, not so much, but maybe he'd get there. Maybe they'd be like, all right, this isn't such a bad life. Maybe we should, no bills, no jobs, just food and fun and bath time. And I don't know. Just think about that one. hit me up in the comments and say let me know what you think, because it's a good conversation starter. I think if you ever meet somebody new, just say, explain this, just like, there's a utopia of people who have been there their entire life, so they're very happy, but they have no freedom. What do you do? It's a good icebreaker, or it's a good way to make people just not want to talk to you. Come on really strong like that. But like I said earlier, this next part, the little voice says, "Hey, it's time to go to sleep." So everybody's like, great, sleep time. So they lay down, and Greg's like ready to pass out. And Steven's like, whoa. We got to go try to get out of here. He goes, I'm so used to this schedule. Well, supposedly he's been there for a couple days, as this episode has multiple times have kind of shown us that he's been here for a few days at least. But to like the prior episodes, what have they done since he's been kidnapped? They quickly rushed back to their house. Then they got the Ruby ship. They didn't even take time to calibrate it to their own thing. And then they sped off into space, and it only took them like 11 minutes to get there. I don't know exactly how long, but not days. They didn't even sleep. So I think it tops has been like a day. I don't know if time was weird with the whole traveling at light speed thing. I don't know. But supposedly Greg's been here for a few days. Maybe I shouldn't think about it too much, and just go with the fact that, yep, Greg's been there for a few days. Get over it, Sam. Don't overthink things. You're being stupid. But that's why I record my own voice talking about Steven Universe, because I think about these things, and if I say them out loud, then I can realize, wow, Sam, you shouldn't really think too hard and just enjoy the episode. So that's, I guess, that's the conclusion of that one. So they go to find the door, and they find it. And they're like banging on the door, trying to like get it open. And the two like main characters from the Utopia pop up. Greg, Steven, what are you doing? And they're like, well, we're trying to open this door. And they're like, what is a door? And they're like, it's like a wall, but it opens. Walls don't open, they are walls. Which the one-liners from this Aladdin dude they're just great. I think he's probably like the shining character in this episode. But they don't understand like these basic things. And the one girl says, I've heard of an opening wall before. There was a human here that got hurt. She says hurts. And a gem came through the wall to help them. And they don't even understand what hurt is, which I'm calling bullshit on. Steven has to explain what hurt is. It's like when you feel good, but the opposite. It's like you feel bad, and they just still don't get it. But just because they're in this utopia, it doesn't mean they haven't stubbed a toe or during bath time slipped on the rocks. I feel like they'd have to know what hurt is. I mean, even if it didn't happen specifically to them, but like an ancestor must have fallen and hit their head or something. How do they not know what hurt is? But to further along the plot, they don't know what hurt is. Steven tries to explain it, and they don't really understand. But Steven's like, you know what? Whatever. I don't care about explaining this to these people anymore. Dad, the only way to get out of here is to get hurt and then have the gems open this door to come help us, and then we'll escape. So he's like, Dad, punch me right in the face. Do it. And Greg's like, nah, you're my kid. It's probably not a good idea. I'll take one for the team. You hit me. So Steven's like, if you're sure. So he's going to slug his dad right in the face, right? The first punch, he like feather hits him. Bloop. And it's like nothing. And he's like, come on, let's do this. Just actually punch me. Let's go. And he doesn't really have an in-between, apparently, because from the feather punch to the I'm going to use my gem powers and punch you in the gut and launch you back into a tree, almost basically killing you. Really, I wrote here, Steven goes from 0 to 100 real quick, and I think that's like the way to explain that punch. So he really hurt him, and the gem still didn't show up. I mean, I don't know how they would know that he's hurt, unless he started making a big scene, which he doesn't. But then suddenly, as he's recovering from this punch, the little voice says, it is time for the choosing. And I just thought of the Hunger Games. They go to this circle. Everybody in the Utopia goes to this big circle, and it's time for the choosing. And this one girl gets chosen. She goes to the middle of the circle, and this one guy gets chosen. And it's like a big honor. So they're stoked to be chosen. and I thought they were going to be like murdered or something at this point. But they're really stoked to be chosen, and the guy that gets chosen at this point does this really manly giggle, and I just love him. I wish there was like more of him in the episode, but it's just like he gets chosened is what it's called, and he just does this great giggle. Go back and watch that scene because I want more people to be like him. And like I said earlier, like the blurred lines of gender and sex and all that, I think is great. And I think just the fact that he's like a big dude with like long blonde hair, and he's like, maybe it didn't sound so much like Goofy like I just did, but he does this really manly / girly giggle, and I think that just further perpetuates the whole, blurred line of gender, which I give an A+. Anyway, so it's time for the choosing, and they quickly realize that when these two people are chosen, they hold hands and they kiss. Basically, it's like setting it, and then Greg is like, "Oh, it's a matchmaking thing." Basically, like I think the choosing is a very rare thing where they choose people to fuck, and then they can breed, and then like the human population stays at a certain constant, so they only let so many people breed at a time. And so it's really creepy. I wrote in my notes, it's spin the bottle of fucking, because they seem to choose at random somewhat. I don't know if it's obviously random, but they choose a man and a woman, and they put them in the middle, and then they kiss and hold hands. Obviously, they don't show them fucking on the show, but I'm sure that's what it is. And the main girl, which is her name is J10 in the episode, she gets chosen, and before she gets chosen, she says, Gureg is what they call him. Gureg, if you get chosen, whoever gets chosen with you is very lucky. And I'm like, damn, J10 wants to fuck Greg. Like, this is happening. She wants to fuck Greg. And then she gets chosen first. And I'm like, come on, Greg, you got this shit. I'm not going to lie. And I don't want to sound like the biggest creepazoid in the world, but J10's pretty fucking hot. And not just because, like, oh, look, she's, like, physically attractive. The fact that she's just, like, so just dehumanized, sort of, kind of a turn on. Don't ask me why. I don't know if anybody else thought the same thing. If I'm alone, then fuck. I'm sorry I'm even mentioning it, but she's kind of hot. And I was like, Greg, hit that shit totally. What is the Rule 32 or something, where if it exists there's a porno about it? I don't know if it's Rule 32 or what it is, but come on, somebody out there has to animate this porn happening from the choosing. I won't watch it because I can't even come up with a good reason. I'm gonna watch that shit anyway. So J10 gets chosen, and then Greg gets chosen, and he goes to middle, and they're like, come on, Greg, go, yeah, you gotta hold her hand, and he's like, no, and he freaks out like a middle schooler getting pressured to dance at a middle school dance, and he's like, no, I don't want to do this. On Earth, this is not how we do it. We get to choose our own people on our own free will. We don't get set up like this. This is wrong. And they're like, wait, what? And then Steven jumps in and is like, yeah, my mom and dad choosing each other, and they fell in love, and that's how it works. You get your own free choice. And they're like, well, if that's the way it works, then I want to have like free reign of being chosen. And then the girl's like, I still choosing Greg. And then the Aladdin dude, he's like, I choose Greg as well. And then everybody's just like, I choose Greg. Greg. I want to fuck Greg. And everybody in this utopia, besides obviously Steven, wants to fuck Greg. Every guy, every girl, everybody wants to be chosen with Greg. And Greg's like, whoa. You guys have you all have your free reign of choice, but so do I. And he says, and if I'm being honest, I don't choose into any of you. I'm not going to choose any of you. And I think, first off, that's very sweet that after all this time, he wouldn't want to be choosing with this hot ass J10, he still is faithful to Rose Quartz for the most part, from what I can tell, and I think that's really cool. I think it's a really cool character trait of Greg, that he seems very faithful to his dead wife. It's very much after all this time, 12 years or so, that he hasn't lost any love for her. He still feels like it was just recent, and we know that it wasn't recent, but he makes it sound like it was, and I think that's kind of a cool trait. But he doesn't choose anybody, everybody chooses him, and then suddenly you see a shot of multiple of the Utopian people, and they all start crying, and one guy he breaks all their hearts at once, and this one dude just manly cries and rips his shirt off, and he's just like, oh my god, my heart's broken. And they all learn what hurt is at this point. Even one of them said, wait, this doesn't feel good, this feels bad, oh god, this is what hurt feels like. And everybody starts freaking out. It's basically like the stereotypical crazy ex-girlfriend, but everybody turns into that. They're like, oh my god, let's chase Greg down. We're fucking pissed and sad, and this is horrible. And he just breaks all their hearts. So Steven and Greg run away, and they hide in a bush. And then, since everybody's freaking out and technically hurt now, the gems, a bunch of amethysts come through that door. And they're like, oh shit, that door is open. And they start trying to round up all the Utopian people, and there's a couple little scenes, jumps to one of them holding them, is like, I'm never gonna choose it again, I'm never gonna love again. And these amethysts aren't detaining them, they're talking to them, making sure that they're okay. They're acting like therapists, and I thought that was really funny. But the door's open, so Greg and Steven see this, and they're like, we gotta get the fuck out of here. So they start running towards the door, and one of the amethysts grab them, by their shirts and, loincloths, grab them by their loincloths and, pull them back, whoa, you two are in big trouble. And it just cuts right there. That's the end of the episode. It was very abrupt to me because I hadn't looked at the timer of how much longer the episode is, and it seemed like such a cut at the end. It felt off, but that's the end of the episode. Another cliffhanger. Can you believe it? Super excited about the next one, and that's, if this next one, the fifth out of all 5 of these episodes for the Steven Bomb, if it ends with a cliffhanger, I'm gonna be fucking livid. How are they getting out of this? I don't know. But that was the end of the episode. It was a good episode. It was a little more filler, but it was thought-provoking. It was interesting. You got a lot of cool character traits of Greg that were really strengthened in this one. I think, I watched it twice before I did this review, like I did with the last few episodes. And, I have a couple notes in here, just mostly about, if the Utopian society should stay the way it is, if Greg and Steven disrupting the whole way of life there was morally wrong. I mean, maybe they didn't do it on purpose, but I don't know. It was interesting. I'm mostly stuck on J10 being hot, but whatever. I'm totally hoping my girlfriend doesn't listen to this, because she's gonna why do you think a cartoon's hot? Here's the thing. This is completely going off topic of Steven Universe. Sometimes I think cartoons are attractive. I think that's okay. She-Hulk was one of my very first crushes of cartoons, and people don't really get that unless you've seen that not original, but what was it, the late 90s animated Hulk show where She-Hulk was in it, and she was just hot, and the way she acted was hot, and people were like, you're talking about the green girl? And yes, she doesn't get, and people are like, oh, when she gets angry you like her? No, She-Hulk is always green. It's a different type of Hulk. I mean, if you don't know this, look it up, but she's so hot. I had the biggest crush on her back in the day, and I think that's okay. I think you can like cartoons. If Steven Universe can blur all these lines of gender roles and whatever, I can like cartoons. I think it's okay. Don't judge me. But that's basically the end of my review. In summary, it's a great episode, and I'm a creep who likes girls cartoon characters. whatever. You know, you can be mad if you want. Thanks for listening. Go ahead and share this if you want. Write in the comments what you think about the episode. Mostly about what you think about these utopian people, if they're supposed to be happy. I know I mentioned this earlier, but yeah, put it in the comments and see. Let's have some thought-provoking conversation. If you liked this, there's one more episode of this Stephen Bomb. That's episode 118. That's going to be coming out tomorrow, which is Friday. If you didn't listen to the previous episodes, you can go find them on my Facebook. I've been uploading them every single day since Monday, so you'll see them. Other than that, bye.